made a unique and unexpected discovery when I was in trauma recovery. I knew I felt anger, pain, disbelief, loss, separation from my husband, and so much more. But when my counselor told me I hadn't grieved, I sat back stunned. I thought you only grieved when someone died. As she gently walked me through past and present trauma, she explained to me that grief related to loss, and loss could be any number of things. I thought about how excited I was to move to our new home, but I neglected to process the loss I felt leaving my current community. And the new job, it was wonderful, yet I felt the anxiety and separation from former coworkers and colleagues. I thought about the friends I'd lost contact with. Some of them even severed relationships. The hurt still lingered because I hadn't processed the loss. I hadn't grieved at all, let alone well. Taking it one step further, I recognized that grief is a normal outcome when we experience loss. I'd never thought about it that way before. I realized another thing about grief in this healing journey. You don't stop grieving. You simply learn to live differently. Through the work with my counselor and then coaches through the years, I've discovered that grieving well has benefits. The first, empathy for yourself and others. No one grieves the same way. You don't just get over it and move on. Jerry Sitzer, in his book A Grace Disguised, says that if we allow it, grief can lead us to the grace that transforms our lives. It's this transforming grace that provides empathy for others. I'd been guilty of expecting myself and others to cry, feel upset for a bit, but move on with life. After all, no one wants to be around someone with a sad face all the time. Now I understand that grief changes you permanently. You never go back to what was because it's not there anymore. Your life takes a jog, one way or another. The second is freedom to live each moment. My mom once told me she spent many months after a great loss doing the same activity, over and over and over again. In the mundaneness of this repetitive activity, she processed her grief. Well, in the last few years, I've had several occasions to remember this conversation and observe my behavior. Like Mom, I find myself repeating actions without thinking. This slowed down, mindless activity helps me process many periods of grief and a sense of loss. When dealing with grief, we reduce our activities to that which matters most. Therein lies our freedom. We spend our energy only where necessary and experience new joy in each moment. It's a curious dichotomy. Number 3, deeper faith. Grief can bring you closer to God if you allow it. Working through the darkness of my grief over Dave's porn addiction and my suicidal depression took me through a faith crisis. Empty platitudes angered me. I needed to wrestle with God, as Jacob did. I had to know that God was real. Learning to express my grief rather than stuff it allowed me to heal and experience joy once again. Discovering your spouse's betrayal through porn addiction causes deep grief. It can feel like a death, and in some ways it is. The relationship you thought you had is now dead. You're left with shattered dreams, loss of identity, broken trust, and so much more. Please give yourself the empathy to find grace in the grief, the freedom to be present today, and the courage to deepen your faith. If you aren't sure where to start, please reach out to me or find a biblically based counselor. Hop on over to KirstenDSamuel.com and click the blue button. Let's talk.